Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dan Lanning, the Oregon Ducks, absolutely cooking on the recruiting trail, landing another commitment late Saturday afternoon. This one coming from five-star cornerback Dorian Brew, who was largely considered an Ohio State lock for the duration of this process. Dan Lanning just seemingly coming out of nowhere and landing one of the best cornerbacks in the 2025 class. And if I were to sell Dorian Brew to the Oregon Duck fans, it would take 20 seconds. This is a 6'2", 200-pound cornerback that runs a 10.75 in the 100-meter dash. You look at just the physical traits that this kid brings to the table. There's not many cornerbacks across the country that are matching athletically what Dorian Brew can do. And you start taking a look at the secondary that Dan Lanning is building in Eugene, combined with what they did in 2024 with guys in Dakota Fields, Aaron Flowers, Ife Obadegwu, now Dorian Brew committing in the 2025 class. This secondary is going to be so good for the Oregon Ducks over the next couple of years. And just another massive recruiting battle victory where you go head-to-head with Ohio State for a guy that was leaning Ohio State the whole process. There's not a program in the country that's hotter than the Oregon Ducks on the recruiting trail. That is 4 commitments in the last day and a half. The Oregon Ducks commitment sweatshirt getting a lot of use over the last couple of days. Really fired up to get into the film. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Oregon Duck fans, the amount of support you guys have shown the fellas over the last couple of days. It's been amazing. Been a blast breaking down these commitments. I can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Dorian Brew. And what I love about Dorian Brew, it starts with just the caliber of athlete that you're bringing in. And you look at kind of where the sport of college football is going with all the talent that you're seeing at the wide receiver positions for a lot of these top schools. You need elite caliber cornerbacks and elite athletes to kind of deal with these kind of wide receivers. Dorian Brew is one of those guys. I mean, you look at the frame. I think he's closer to 6'2" right now, 200 pounds. He is absolutely put together for a kid that's going into a senior year of high school. And on top of the frame, the 10.75 in the 100-meter dash, one of the fastest cornerbacks in the 2025 cycle. There's not a physical trait that Dorian Brew's lacking. This was a two-way player when he played in the state of Ohio. And we always talk about this. There are kind of 3 pillars that we look for cornerbacks coming from the high school ranks, going to college. 1, long speed. Can you run with wide receivers vertically down the field? Dorian Brew, 10.75 in the 100 meters, certainly checks that box. Do you have the ball skills? Dorian Brew, having played wide receiver, certainly has the ball skills. And then finally, do you have the frame to deal with some of these bigger boundary wideouts? Dorian Brew at 6'2", 200 pounds certainly has that frame. This kid's a box checker that puts it on the film. There's not a question why he's considered a 5-star in this 2025 class. And you kind of get into the kind of football player he is. He's one of those cornerbacks that can just kind of eat you up at the line of scrimmage. He's got long arms. He's a big physical frame. In press man coverage, I mean, wide receivers just struggle to get off the line of scrimmage with a guy like Dorian Brew. And because of the track speed that he has, he can be physical in terms of how he uses his hands because he knows he can run with wide receivers down the field, a guy that's willing to come up and tackle and be physical. One of the most physically imposing cornerbacks that we're going to see in this 2025 class. You start rolling the film, only played 5 games during his junior year, but it is not easy, or not hard, I should say, to see why he's considered a 5-star. 1, the physicality, the chip on the shoulder that this kid plays with. And again, how do you want your cornerbacks wired? You want them wired like this. Dorian Brew is a physical ball player that has no problem being physical, coming up and supporting the run game. He's a guy that, again, closes on throwing windows exceptionally well. You kind of freeze frame right here. I mean, Dorian Brew breaking on this football, just taking that football away. You obviously see the ball skills. You see the long speed on the return. He's one of those cornerbacks that you're going to have to be great if you want to beat a guy like Dorian Brew, working downhill, being physical and run support. Again, a lot of the growing pains that you see for young cornerbacks have to do with physicality, coming up and tackling in the box. Dorian Brew You don't have any question marks about that. Love what he can do in press man coverage. I mean, quarterbacks don't even really look at Dorian Brew because he is so excellent at just eating wide receivers up at the line of scrimmage, putting those paws on him, squeezing them out to the boundary. I don't blame the quarterback for not even giving Dorian Brew a look. You see multiple reps of him at the line of scrimmage, just being physical, squeezing wide receivers to the boundary. He's one of those cornerbacks that you can just leave islands on. You run this play back again, really fluid in the hips. I'm going to say right in the hip pocket of this wide receiver. The combination of the physicality and then the smoothness and the speed that Dorian Brew has, he's one of those cornerbacks that truly can be that cornerback one in the defense. And when you have a cornerback one, a guy that can take away a half of the field, it's absolutely massive for a defense. You can get really creative in terms of how you want to use these safeties. Dorian Brew, at least in my mind, can be that kind of guy. He's a technician on the boundary. You take a look at Oregon in the 2025 class. I feel like it was a week ago? We were talking about Oregon being outside of the top 20. Once they add Dorian Brew to this 2025 class, we are talking about a top 5 class in the country, trending for multiple other 5-star prospects. I look at Oregon and say the combination of what they're doing in terms of the transfer portal and the high school recruiting trail, I'm not sure if there's a program in the country that's doing better in the talent acquisition game than this Oregon Ducks program. Another massive commitment for the Ducks. We'll close it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.